Dr. Becker, next to you, and I think you hit upon this in the commentary. This congressional district has its fair share of federally financed and or supported infrastructure. Metro North, obviously, suburban crossings. What's the federal government's responsibility in infrastructure? What would you see its role here in Phillipstown and in Putnam County?
As I said in answer to the last 2 questions ago, I think it was, that I think rebuilding infrastructure is critical. I think that's how you jumpstart the economy. And as I said, the secondary gain from that is that you're left with new structure. One of the problems with Dan Hayworth is she does not believe in earmarks. Earmarks has a terrible connotation, but it's really how the game is played. Federal money comes back to the district. That's our tax money that goes to Washington. Comes back to us when we have a Congress member who fights for us and brings it back. If you take the position that I'm not going to take earmarks, no money comes back. So I think it's imperative that we elect a Congress member who understands that, who looks and sees and knows the needs of this particular community, and then goes and gets the appropriate funding. No, I'm not talking about bridges to nowhere. I'm talking about things that we do need in this community, like the Tappan Zee Bridge that was mentioned, but even roads right here that are undersized. As this community has grown, the roads many times are single lane, they don't have a divider. Look at Route 9 right here. To me, that's a very scary road whenever it gets wet and gets rainy or snowy. There's no divider. And you have traffic and people who commute both ways every single day between, let's say, White Plains and more towards Poughkeepsie. That road needs to be widened, it needs to be straightened, we need to have a divider, it needs to be safe. So I think we need to bring back money to this area to do these infrastructure projects. And as you mentioned in your earlier question, rail, I'd love to see high-speed rail. Every other industrial nation has that. That would save us in fuel and get us from there to green. There's just so many advantages. And if we had high-speed rail, most of us would opt to leave our cars because it would be simply better. Thank you.
My dad likes to say that everybody talks about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. And I think sometimes with infrastructure, it's the same thing, right? What are we going to do about it? And what I worked on in the governor's office was, how do we put together the resources to actually make generational investments in infrastructure? When I look around at what my parents and my grandparents did and achieved with a far smaller economy in a country that was far less rich than we are today, but they had the vision and the priority and the values to invest in the future. And we can do these things. So one of the ideas I like is when we combine public and private resources, when we take private capital and we leverage our efforts in the public sector, so that we're building bridges, not focused on bonuses. I think what banks ought to be doing is they ought to be investing in our roads and our bridges and our transportation systems, and our water systems, in our sewer systems, in our telecommunication systems, in broadband, in things that will grow this economy. And I have specific ideas for how to do that. I think that's absolutely critically important. We are about $2 trillion behind in this country where we need to be over the next 10 years in infrastructure investments. We are never going to grow. We are never going to grow by cutting. We are never going to grow by fighting. We are never going to grow by bickering with each other. We have got to do these things, and that means bringing everybody together around real ideas that work. Now, these are not Democratic ideas or Republican ideas. These are ideas that will work to get bridges built, to get roads built, to get things done. It's what I've worked on. It's what I want to work on in Washington if you'll give me your support. Thank you.
I've financed many things in my working career. I financed in New Windsor, New York, in this district, a $20 million paper machine. And I did it in 9 months for a startup company that employed 95 people. Now, when I went to go work on financing a $6 million water treatment facility for our population who had to buy water from our community by law, that took me 5 years. And it took me 5 years because there are inconsistencies, there are problems in the way we have financed infrastructure in this country. We have New York State competing with the federal government for 2 different loan programs. It's a nightmare program, and it's one where you rarely get a good response for your community. And I have experience from this, not from Washington, not from Albany, but from the bottom of at the grassroots level. And what I've seen, I don't like. And what I saw held us back as a community and held back our ability to bring back results for our taxpayers and to save our taxpayers $30 million. There are many things we can do to streamline the way public works projects are financed and make sure that federal money, which is funneled through state programs, is put forth in a way that makes sense for each community so that each community is able to deliver more services and fix the infrastructure problems in the United States of America and put people back to work and create communities that are able to employ people in the future. And I know this from my grassroots knowledge as a mayor of a struggling community that has $70 million of infrastructure needs because of 100-year-old water systems and sewer systems running underneath its streets. And it's not unlike most communities in the Northeast.